at Aviemore, where the left-hand track is bi-directional, again to save passengers of most southbound trains having to cross the footbridge. The fine junction station was originally opened in 1863, but rebuilt in its present form in 1898. In its centenary year, a £2.5 million refurbishment by Railtrack was completed, returning the station to its former splendour. Aviemore is in many ways the winter sports capital of the Highlands, with the famous Cairngorm ski slopes nearby and hopefully, in winter, covered with snow. The faint but unmistakable smell of smoke and steam in the air points to the fact that this is still a working junction station, the terminus of the Strathspey Railway. A BR-built 260 Mogul arrives with a train from Boat of Garton at platform 3. Unusually, the station area retains semaphore signalling controlled from the former north signal box lever frame, whilst colour light signals are in use for the 31 miles from north of Clinewsey to Daviot, controlled from a panel installed inside the box in 1979. We pass the disused Speyside station. The platform buildings, originally from Down the Spiddle, were re-erected here by the Strathspey Railway Preservation Society, who reopened the first 5 miles of the Forest Line to Boat of Garton in July 1978 for heritage steam trains. Track has been relaid a further 4 miles to Broom Hill, although the ultimate aim is the reopening of the line a further 3.5 miles to Grantham-Spey, the capital of Strathspey. Speyside station closed when the steam train started running into the main station in 1998. Aviemore became a junction in 1892, with the opening of the first section of the direct line to Inverness. The Forest Line had opened just under 30 years earlier, in 1863, but closed in 1965, although the section to Boat of Garton remained open to freight for a further 3 years. We're now on the direct line, which opened as far as Carbridge on 8th of July 1892, to Daviot in July 1897, and throughout on the first day of November 1898. It reduced the distance between Perth and Inverness to 118 miles, compared to the previous 144 miles, a saving of 26 miles. The new line was built to fight off competing attempts to build a line into Inverness from the southwest through the Great Glen. Construction of this line placed a severe strain on the finances of the Highland Railway, for it required major earthworks, rock cuttings, several bridges, and 2 massive viaducts. An indicator to the severity of the terrain was the time taken to build. Despite the availability of the steam navvy, the 34-mile route took 8 years to build, nearly 4 times as long as the 104 miles of the Inverness and Perth. The eventual cost of the direct line was just under £1 million. That's about 60 million today. The Perth to Inverness journey time was reduced by an hour to a new timing of 3¼ hours, while the old line via Forres was downgraded to a secondary route. Ironically for the Highland, strapped for cash, the shorter route also meant reduced revenue, because ticket prices were calculated on the basis of mileage. Notice, by contrast to south of Aviemore, the overbridges had been built with provision for double track. However, the section through to Daviot, where double track commenced to Inverness, always remained single, though with several passing loops. We're now climbing out of the Spey Valley on a bank as steep as 1 in 75, the first part of the ascent to Slough summit. Heavy trains were piloted from Aviemore up to the summit. The line now falls for just over a mile, before the climb to Slough restarts just to the south of Carbridge. We're signalled non-stop on the straight road through Carbridge. The South Box here closed in 1957. The Highland Railway main station building was constructed in timber. A small wooden shelter was provided on this platform. Until the 1950s, the signal wires here used to run on poles to keep them clear of the snow. The area became signalled from Aviemore in 1979. The up sidings north of the station used to handle timber traffic in years gone by. Just after leaving the station, the line crosses the River Dalmain viaduct. The countryside now grows wilder, with extensive forestation, a prime timber growing area. Even the 8-arch Slough viaduct was built with double width, enabling an unusual single guide rail to be provided. The small snowflake sign above the speed limit indicates a brake proving point. In snowy conditions, drivers must bring their train to a complete stand here to prove the effectiveness of their brakes before reaching the summit. Multiple units in particular are vulnerable to powdery snow freezing onto the disc brakes. Note the protective netting in the narrow pass to help prevent rock falls. Slough Summit, at 1,315 feet, is the third highest on the National Rail network. Approached from the north by a continuous bank of as steep as 1 in 60 for 22 miles from near sea level at Inverness. This southbound bank was the more severe, requiring banking of the heaviest steam trains up to the summit. The embankment leads to one of the major obstacles on the direct line. An elegant curved viaduct, a quarter of a mile long and 143 foot high, carries the line over the river Findhorn on 9 lattice girder spans. Tomatin Viaduct is an attractive 9-arch stone viaduct, carrying the line over Tomatin village. The stone base of the old water tower can be seen at the southern end of Tomatin station, essential for replenishing steam locomotives on the steep climb to Slough. The area was re-signalled from Aviemore in 1979, and the old BR Scottish Region signal box, dating only from 1968, is retained as a relay room. The main station building was constructed in timber, but after closure in 1965, it was demolished. The double speed sign on the approach to Moy crossing loop warns of a limit of 20 miles per hour for loco-hauled trains and 40 for multiple units, including HSTs. Moy, situated near Loch Moy, closed in 1965. The typical stone Highland railway building remains in private use. The passing loop here was abolished in 1963, but reopened with the modernisation scheme remotely controlled from Aviemore. As we drop past the former station at Daviot into the Nairn Valley, wonderful views of the Moray Firth begin to open up, and the countryside takes on a softer, lowland character. The double-track section into Inverness used to start here, but was singled as far as Culloden Moor in 1968. The line turns northeasterly, hugging the contours, but still descending steeply at 1 in 60. another breathtaking viaduct, this time consisting of 29 red sandstone arches totalling 595 yards in length, crossing the River Nairn at a height of 128 feet. Easily the largest viaduct between Perth and Inverness. It's also the longest masonry viaduct in the whole of Scotland. It cost £70,000, equivalent to about £4.5 million today. Its difficult and costly construction bankrupted the original contractor. Away to the west, the famous Battle of Culloden took place on 16th April 1746. Here the government army under the Duke of Cumberland defeated the Jacobites under Bonnie Prince Charlie. Culloden Moor Station was another of those closed to passengers on 3rd May 1965. As a matter of interest, the station is a candidate for reopening in the future, with the growth in population of the area since closure and the popularity of the nearby Battle of Culloden Visitors Centre. The line now swings round to a northwesterly direction again for the final run into Inverness. The Moray Firth appears in the background. The Black Isle comes into view behind the large building, Inverness's Aviemore Hospital. Cradle Hall Junction, the start of the bi-directional section to Inverness. The line from Aberdeen passes underneath. We tunnel below the Inverness interchange for the A9, on its way to the far north over the Keswick Bridge across the Moray Firth. Now in the final mile to Inverness, we drop down to the coastal plain just above sea level. We swing westwards and now join the Aberdeen line. The former Inverness and Nairn Railway opened in 1855, which became the original Highland Railway route from the south via Forres. This is Milburn Junction Yard, the main freight terminal for Inverness. Notice the snowplows. Welsh's Bridge Junction is the start of the Rose Street curve, which avoids Inverness Station and connects with the far north line towards Dingwall. The former Highland Railway Loch Gorm Locomotive Works and Needlefield Carriage Works are passed to our right. Locomotive building ceased in 1906. The two-road carriage depot opened in 1983 to service hauled stock, including the Mark III sleepers introduced that year on the Royal Highlander. ScotRail's fleet of refurbished sleeper and lounge cars are now based here. We arrive at platform 4. The island platform, with its ridged roof bay, is the original part of the station, opened on 5th November 1855 with the arrival of the Inverness and Nairn Railway. In December 2000, Inverness was one of 3 towns to be awarded city status by the Queen. The city, with a local population of about 43,000, plus another 20,000 in the surrounding district, is the fastest growing in Scotland.